Louisiana Eats is brought to you with major support from Louisiana Fish Fry, a backyard staple for 40 years. Maker of batters, coatings, boils, tartar sauce, cocktail sauce, and more. Let's all Louisiana. From our studios in the Southern Food and Beverage Museum in New Orleans, this is Louisiana Eats. I'm Poppy Tooker. It's Mardi Gras time in Louisiana, so on this week's show, we're bringing Carnival to you. First, children's author Johnette Downing explores just who got the baby in the king cake. Then, Sally Asher and Melissa Vandiver introduce us to the Mermaids of Mardi Gras, who trade in their fins for feet when they come ashore every year to join in our celebrations. We'll learn the truth behind the Cajun Courir de Mardi Gras from Jean LaFleur, and if you stick around, I'll even teach you how to make my famous Mardi Gras Jell-O shots. All that and more, because it's Mardi Gras time on this week's Louisiana Eats. Mardi Gras traditions often bring up more questions than answers. For instance, how did the king cake get its famous plastic baby? How do people celebrate Carnival outside of New Orleans? These are just some of the questions that author and songwriter Johnette Downing answers for the very youngest Louisianians in her award-winning books. Johnette has earned many nicknames over her stunning career, from the Pied Piper of Louisiana music traditions to the musical ambassador to children. When I last spoke to Johnette, she had some exciting news to share. The kind of news that, well, just makes you want to sing along.
That's right. I have my 11th record is coming out.
11th record? Oh,
yes.
My goodness.
And it's called Romp, a Louisiana dance party for children. It's the first record I've done with my husband. He's a 3-time Grammy Award winner, Scott Billington. And I have a duet with Irma Thomas on the record. I have a duet with James Singleton. He's played, I know, it's just been fantastic. And Joel Savoy of the Savoy Family Band, and they're the Dukes of Dixieland, the Dirty Dozen Brass Band is on there, Rebirth Brass Band is on there, and Doug Belote. You know, it's like the who's who of Louisiana music. And I'm just so honored that they came out and played on this record.
Oh, my goodness, this must be like the dream of a lifetime for you.
It really is. It's like my whole career came full circle, and to have my first record with Scott, he produced it, and it's just been an amazing journey.
Johnette, I am so tickled to have you back here on Louisiana Eats because you are one of my favorite authors. Your work is always so food-centric. So let's get started with who got the baby in the king cake? What inspired you to write this book? Tell me how you come up with the concept.
Well, this one, I just thought, I always think about children. They always ask why and how did that happen, So who got the baby in the king cake? That's a colloquialism that we say all the time. But when you go other places, they don't know, what are you talking about? Is there a baby in a king cake? Why would you put a baby in a cake? So I thought I have to explain to children, why do we have a king cake baby?
And why do we?
Well, it's a good luck symbol, and whoever finds the little plastic baby, it's a little tiny thing, whoever finds their baby in their piece of king cake has to host the next party, the next king cake party. And that's just a way for New Orleanians to get around and have more parties,
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, but before we continue the discussion, my goodness, this is almost like a cookbook because you explain the whole process of how to make the king cake. Let's hear the song.
That sounds great. Who got the baby in the king cake? Did she find the baby in the king cake? Did he get the baby in the king cake? No, you got the baby in the king cake. What happens when you get the baby? You have to give the next party, and Invite all your friends and your family to eat king cake and be merry. Let's party, it's Mardi Gras down in New Orleans.
I love Who Got the Baby in the King Cake. You know, when I was little, I always heard tales of people swallowing the baby so they wouldn't have to bring a cake. Wouldn't that be a disturbing thing?
Well, that is not good.
That is not good. That is highly not recommended.
When they used to put pecans in there or a pea.
Or a bean.
A bean.
At one time, it was a gold fava bean, I've heard.
That's true. And then they came up with the little plastic king cake baby. And now they come in all different colors, which is really fun. And you can have more than one king cake baby because we love to party. So more people have the king cake baby, the more parties we have.
You never have enough king cake babies, I think. Your illustrations are so much fun. Who's responsible for them?
I illustrated that one, yeah. I illustrate some of my books, not all of them, but this one is. And I use cut paper collage, which is really fun. And I like to use cut paper collage because it's something that children have in their classrooms or at home. And they just cut the shapes and glue and make three-dimensional images out of them.
J'ai voulu le renard de la belette, j'ai voulu le renard danser. J'ai voulu le renard de la belette, j'ai voulu le renard danser.
What exactly is this story about, Johnette?
Well, you know, in Louisiana, we have not one type of Mardi Gras, but two types of Mardi Gras. We have the Mardi Gras in New Orleans area with all the floats, but there's also a rural Mardi Gras out in the Cajun Prairie, and it's Courir de Mardi Gras. And they don't have floats per se. What they do is they ride around on horseback and they go from each house begging for ingredients to make a communal gumbo. And at the end of the chicken run, they call it, they have a big party and everyone eats gumbo.
Well, that brave chicken on the chase. How does he warn everybody about the revelers on the way with the intent of the gumbo pot?
He sings out, "Mumbo jumbo, stay out of the gumbo. Mumbo jumbo, stay out of the gumbo."
Does he succeed?
He does. And that's a repeated refrain throughout the whole book. He does. He warns them all. And at the end of the book, the Cajun revelers, there are no animals to go in the gumbo, and they have to eat a delicious pot of gumbo zerbs.
Gumbo zerbs? Well, you know, I am looking through the book, and it's kind of hilarious because that chicken, that cheeky chicken, he's warning the shrimp. He's warning the pigs. Who all does he reach in the nick of time?
It's a duck, a goose, pigs, cows, everybody. All the
shrimp, oysters. Even the oysters, he had to sing to them on the oyster beds.
That's right. And the crawfish. And the book is illustrated by Jennifer Lindsley, and she's from Thibodaux, Louisiana. So she did a great job of making that little chicken look really fun and all the animals and all the masking, because they do masking there too, but it's different from our masking in New Orleans.
So they end up with a gumbo zerbs, which
That's
of
right.
course is that green gumbo that's really a Creole tradition. So this must have been news for those Cajun folks.
That's right. They had to learn about our great vegetarian gumbo here in New Orleans.
And interestingly, this was your first vegetarian story in essence.
That's true. And also it's funny because I'm moving toward more of a plant-based diet, about 90%. And that's really tough for a person from New Orleans. It
is.
But I do about 90% plants. So I thought, and I've had many parents say, well, we love your books. Like if they're a vegetarian family, they say, we love your books, but they're all about meat eating. You know, have you ever had a thought about doing a vegetarian book? And I said, so that's perfect. This is it, gumbo zerbs.
Well, do you know what I really love about your books is that you tell our story authentically and accurately to all of those poor children who don't get to live in New Orleans. I bet you have some stories about expats in various parts of the world who make sure they're raising little New Orleanians with your help.
That's true. People tell me, oh, your book is going to Minnesota, it's going to France. I had a little family from France, and they lived here in New Orleans for a while, and they came to all of my shows. And then they moved back to France, and now they send me pictures of their kids, you know, holding my books and singing those songs. It's really sweet.
And you're as international as your books are. You go everywhere with them.
Yeah, I've been fortunate, because everyone loves Louisiana culture. So I've performed on 5 continents. And they want my music, my Louisiana heritage, the music and the books that all represent Louisiana culture.
They must not always understand the language. How do you manage that?
Yeah, well, food is the best language, and they certainly understand that. Grab your brother and your sister too. Ow. Show your partner what you can do. Ow. We'll be dancing the whole night through. Swamp romp, swamp romp.
Johnette Downing, multi-award-winning musician and children's book author. Her latest album, Swamp Romp, is available from her website, JohnetteDowning.com, and everywhere good tunes are sold.
Let the good times roll. Take it down to the ground. Feel the beat. Then stomp and swamp and romp. Everybody, let's roll.
Hi, my name is Sally Asher, and I am the writer of the Mermaids of New Orleans.
I'm Melissa Vandiver, and I illustrated the Mermaids of New Orleans.
Carnival revelers go through so many transformations from Twelfth Night to Fat Tuesday that sometimes it's hard to separate myth from reality. Luckily, author Sally Asher and illustrator Melissa Vandiver visited our studio to set the record straight. As it turns out, mermaids are very real, and they're getting ready to make themselves known this carnival season. Sally began by describing how she first happened upon the mermaid community of New Orleans.
A couple years ago, I learned about the underwater mermaid culture that happened in New Orleans. And as I was thinking about it, I realized just as people are different from all over the cities they live, and each city has different food and culture and traditions, if they're lucky, why wouldn't the mermaids do the same? All mermaids aren't alike.
Tell me about those mermaids in the Mississippi River.
Well, the ones that I wrote about in the Mississippi River prefer New Orleans over all the other ports and cities, and that's where they want to be because of the music, which is bass band music. They dance to the music of their local bass bands.
Who else? Who else do they love on land?
Well, they love Big Frida. They love Big Frida. They have a lot of local icons that they love and admire, such as Chris Owens and Peggy Scott Laborde and Margaret Orr and Leah Chase and, of course, Poppy Tooker.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have to say, Sally Asher, this was one of the greatest honors of my entire life. Sally, you made me and Leah Chase into mermaids.
Well, mermaids live in trident houses, which are designed if you throw a trident from one end of the house to the other, none of the prongs break, much like shotgun houses. And Leah Chase and Poppy Tooker are hanging out on the front stoop, just chatting as the neighbors go by. The mermaids swim by, they decorate, children mermaids playing in the street, just hanging out with your friend, enjoying the afternoon.
How do mermaids come on land?
Well, all mermaids across the world are typically allowed on land one day a year. And so New Orleans mermaids, of course, choose the best day of the year, which is Mardi Gras Day. But in some ways, it'd be much harder to pick them out of the crowd because of all the sparkles and the costume and the glitter.
Absolutely.
But mermaids fit in very, very well and enjoy all the festivities of the day.
All right, at this point, we have woven a fantastical tale, but I cannot imagine having someone hand me this story and say, draw me a picture of this. Melissa, how in the world did you do this?
Well, I really wanted to. So I was really excited, so that helped. When Sally and I first talked about it, I was like, on a high for like 2 days, like, oh, I really want to do this. But I've just been drawing and painting my whole life. So somebody telling me, draw this, paint this is just normal for me. And then somebody telling me, draw this or paint this very quickly buy when I need it, how I want it is also something I'm used to. So.
Well, but Melissa, I don't know. Have you had much experience with portraiture in the past? Because that seems to be an extra challenge.
That definitely is a challenge. If I was just making generic mermaids, that would be one thing. But almost every single face you see in the book is a real person who exists. If you were watching me paint, you can see me having pictures of people on my phone while I'm sitting there doing their little faces. But I've been doing human portraits my whole life. It's my first love. And I don't get enough of a chance to do them that often. People don't buy portraits like they did in the old days before photographs. So it was kind of exciting to actually get back into humans because normally I'm painting people's pets.
One of the fabulous things about the book are the itsy bitsy crazy little details that Sally made you paint into these pictures. Now, what were some of her craziest details?
I think some of the ones that I viewed as the craziest, and I mean this with lots of love, are the names of cookbooks in the background of a scene. I had to paint those with brushes that I reserved to paint nail art on my fingernails because they were so small.
Oh, my goodness.
But if Melissa could do it, she did it. And she did a great job.
She did. And when you go out, your mermaid get up is pretty serious.
Melissa and I go all the way. When we do signings, we go as mermaids.
You also offered to help turn little kids into mermaids on the spot.
I was touching up my glitter when I saw a little girl longingly look at my glitter. Oh. And I said, "Would you like me? Is it okay with your parents? Would you like me to put some on you?" And she said yes. And from then on, I would always have 3 to 4 little pots of glitter whenever I do a signing so I can mermaid eyes any boy, girl, adult that would like to.
Also, you've had some reactions from some people in the book. You heard from Big Frida.
Yes. My friend Jennifer and I have made it a mission to have everyone who's featured in the mermaid book autograph their picture. And some are a little bit more difficult to obtain than others. And Big Frida was doing a wine signing of her new rosé at a wine store. And so Jennifer and I bought a bottle and stood in line. And I don't think I had gotten permission from her representatives. I don't know if she knew anything about it. I don't know if they told her. Uh-huh. And so I was a little nervous. I didn't know if she knew. And Jennifer went up and said, "Will you sign this?" She took the opening hit for me. Will you sign here? And she seemed kind of surprised. And then I said, admitted, well, I wrote the book. And she was absolutely thrilled and gave her a copy of it and loved it. And then someone on Instagram who does basically takes pictures of her daughter reading the books, different children's books. Oh. Very sweet. And shot this amazing picture of her daughter with her mouth open, similar to the expressions that Melissa and I see at signings, that says the moment you see Big Frida as a character in your mermaid book. And it was lovely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. And I'll be looking for mermaids this Mardi Gras day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emerald City.
That was Sally Asher and Melissa Vandiver, author and illustrators of The Mermaids of New Orleans.
This fishtail began where most fishtails end. With a school of food fish. Playing hooky for school but getting caught.
Coming up next, scholar Jean LaFleur joins us to talk about the Creole Courir de Mardi Gras. Louisiana Eats returns after a break.
I got a string attached to my thing. I can boogie, baby. I can do my thing right
now. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Louisiana Eats is brought to you with major support from Camellia Brand. Beans done right a New Orleans tradition since 1923. And from Ralph Brennan's Redfish Grill, home of the award-winning barbecue oyster poor boy and 9 varieties of fresh Gulf fish caught and served daily. Lunch, dinner, and private events at 115 Bourbon Street in the French Quarter.
Les Mardi Gras sont sur un grand voyage sous la tête du Moyeu. Ça passe une fois par an devant de la charité. Comme un petit Saint-Paul qui troque ton maïs.
My name is Jean LaFleur, and my new book is Their Words, Their Hands, Their Gifts, Louisiana's Creole Food and Culture, a menu of ethnic diversity.
Jean LaFleur is a Louisiana cultural scholar, Creole Cajun gourmet, and author who was raised in Evangeline Parish. On a recent visit to the Louisiana Eats studio, he spoke with us about the Courir de Mardi Gras, a ritual that has been taking place in rural southwest Louisiana communities for centuries. These traditions continue in rural parishes today and show us what the Mardi Gras was like in New Orleans long before the introduction of parades and masquerade balls.
And it comes from the Caribbean world. The Caribbean world Mardi Gras is very much like what goes on in the country. I had an old friend who was a missionary years ago when I was a boy. She told me how at the time where I lived in Ville Platte growing up, she said the whole culture, they still had voodoo dolls being made by old women and so forth. She said, this is just like Haiti. She said that. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was a child of 10 years old. But it was somewhere around that age that I witnessed. I would see it all the time. We had the Courir de Mardi Gras, which is French for the Mardi Gras run, huge groups of men on horseback or huge pedestrian groups in costumes that were very varied, costumes that looked like Indians, the Mardi Gras Indians of New Orleans. This was very much so in Ville Platte, the Indian costumes worn by people who were labeled African. People wore the skeleton suits with the top hat, which goes back to Haitian, Mardi Gras and Carnival, those old traditions. The cymbals, the drums, everything was a Native American, I would say a Caribbean Afro expression of Mardi Gras. The costumes were beautiful. The old medieval chant of Mardi Gras, like a dirge. You know, le Mardi Gras vient qu'une fois par an. Charité, charité, give us gumbo and rice and all of that. That is still part of the heritage. It's part of a ritual that the city has lost when it's commercialized Mardi Gras. Why did things not change? For 2 primary reasons, things did not change in the country. Isolation and commerce. Commerce transformed everything in the bigger cities that were heavily Americanized. New Orleans had the influence of 19th century French chefs, as well as Mardi Gras, the Alabama Mardi Gras of the early 1840s, with big crews influenced New Orleans, fancy parades. That did trickle down into the country. But the original country Mardi Gras off of Main Street was a real courir. And you have these people that would come in beautiful choreography up to my mother's back door, and they knew my mother, and everyone spoke French. And they bowed, and they began the beautiful choreography. There were people who would come to the front of the lines with brooms, sweeping away evil spirits like what you see in the Caribbean and West Africa. The costumes were dynamic. There was a sincerity. It was a ritual. As a boy, I saw these. This was a real courir. They would go across the whole countryside dancing and performing for people, the householders, to give them rice and smoked sausage and chicken and all the fixings for the communal supper of the gumbo that night. Because remember, everything stops at midnight, just like in New Orleans, because Ash Wednesday, the bells of the church and repentance demand absolute repentance on Ash Wednesday.
Well, in your book, you describe this one last Mardi Gras that you recall in Ville Platte. Explain to me about this Mardi Gras in Ville Platte and how this Mardi Gras that you remember does not really exist anymore.
You know, Poppy, when you talk about my experience, you must remember that this is a collective experience. My mother saw it. Everyone in the neighborhood saw it. Black, white, red, yellow, and brown. What happens? The ringleader, the heir of this sacred tradition, his name was Tikai. Tikai in French means little spotted one. He was as black as anybody from darkest Africa could be. But he was a Fusilier. He was a direct descendant of Fusilier de la Claire, the famous official, again, who was French, who administered in Louisiana. And remember, the French cared for their children. They liberated them. They were never slaves. They provided for them financially. Tikai was a Fusilier, but in the American period, he could not claim that name anymore. He had to use his mother's name, which, by the way, was a Native American tradition. The heritage of the child came through the mother's line, the matrilineal line. But Tikai was the ringleader. He could sing. He was charismatic. He would lead the group on foot, not on horseback. And it was powerful. The music was like something that was totally uncommercialized. There were drums. There were percussions with Shasta Cola cans with gravel in it. There were horns, French horns that I recall. I don't remember an accordion, but these things were all there. And it was beautiful and dramatic. It left a permanent impression on my young mind. And my mother, with her very beautiful Native American persona, very, very serious looking, intense green eyes, with her beautiful olive skin, she walked a bag of rice and sausage and chicken and gave it to me to hand it as an offering. And when the music stopped and the dance stopped, I presented the gift offerings, and the leader, Tikai, went to my mother and bowed. She bowed and turned. This is not something you ever know or hear about with the commercial traditions that obfuscated what was once a very personal ritual, typical and tied to the people, the first people, the roots of this culture, the very roots, the same roots that founded New Orleans and gave us that rich menu that will never go out of style.
So it seems from what you have written that Mardi Gras existed in Ville Platte, only it moved to Mamou?
Well, Tikai died, and the Ville Platte community was becoming more and more Americanized. Codeville had created this bycast system of you're Cajun, you're no longer Creole. So suddenly white Creoles began disavowing Creole identity. When Tikai died, the people who were in charge at City Hall decided they were going to get rid of the original Courir and give it to Mamou. Mamou was the red-headed stepchild in the family. Ville Platte, as the parish seat of the newly formed parish in 1910 called Evangeline, that began presenting itself as Cajun, didn't want anything that tied itself to its Caribbean heritage or native roots, because you had to become white. Cajun was the magic word, the shibboleth of saying, I'm white. They started a new commerce based on the myth of Evangeline Longfellow's story, and they labeled the parish Evangeline, which previously had been the northwest corner of Royal St. Landry Parish, a Creole Métis colony, founded by Napoleonic soldiers. So Mamou said, no problem. They saw their opportunity because they didn't have any kind of economic catalyst to compete, and they capitalized upon it. But eventually it fell apart because of the increasing bifurcation of the people as Cajun versus Creole. In Mamou, till this day, when you have the street dances at Mardi Gras, you have the white stage and you have the black stage at opposite ends of the street.
But do I hear you correctly that those who believe they're going into Cajun country to see a Courir de Mardi Gras, actually what they are seeing is a Creole celebration?
That's exactly right. You're witnessing the oldest food culture, the oldest expressions of Louisiana's earliest Creole menu, from griots and grits to sauce piquante de lapin to gumbo, sauce piquante. It's all there. There was no catalyst in the country like the 19th century French chefs to change that. You have to understand, until Huey P. Long, there were no bridges. There were primitive ferries. So people were isolated. The Acadians were not allowed in that area with few exceptions. It would not be until World War I, that Acadian and Creoles of any sort were finally drawn together because the Acadians were forced to settle around Donaldsonville, the German coast, to Morgan City. It was the Germans who taught the Acadians how to cook Louisiana Creole. The gumbo, potato salad with gumbo, the accordion was German. The Acadians did not bring these traditions. They learned it through cultural assimilation, and the Germans got kicked in the booty and not even said thank you to.
Well, John, I am so glad that you have been able to demystify this for us.
That's the point.
So how would you today wish everyone a happy Mardi Gras in the way that you all do?
Well, I would say et tout and bon Mardi Gras. That means everybody have a great Mardi Gras.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with us on Louisiana Eats.
You're very welcome, Lady Poppy. Thank you.
Louisiana cultural scholar and author Jean LaFleur. You can find a link to purchase John's book by visiting our website at poppytooker.com. Our guy on the food scene in North Louisiana is Chris J. No one knows more about what's happening in Shreveport-Bossier than Chris, so we gave him a ring to hear how they're celebrating Mardi Gras north of I-10 this year. Chris, what a wonderful pleasure to have you back on Louisiana Eats. It just amazes me what a carnival scene you've got up there.
We have grown over the years. I mean, in the very early 1900s, there was Mardi Gras in Shreveport-Bossier, and it went away for several decades, but it came back in the 1980s. And I got to tell you, there are some wonderful parades happening here. I would encourage anyone who thinks that maybe, Mardi Gras can only happen in New Orleans or can only happen, in certain places, to maybe consider coming for the Crew of Highland parade here. It's a funky, crazy neighborhood parade where they throw all sorts of crazy things. They're famous for throwing grilled hot dogs. There's a float that throws about 10,000 grilled hot dogs a year.
So much of Mardi Gras is really about the food. What are the Mardi Gras foods that people flock to in Shreveport?
Up here in northwest Louisiana, people are just obsessed with fillings. So you can get king cakes filled with just about anything. There's one bakery that does, Lila's does a king cake called the Elvis that's filled with, obviously, peanut butter and bananas. You can get a boudin king cake topped with crumbled bacon and steamed syrup. There's just flavors galore. There's also a local vendor that kind of made some waves. He made something called a bisqueen cake, which is a king cake made out of biscuit dough, and it made some waves because Garden and Gun ordered one, and they enjoyed it so much that they wrote it up.
So gumbo has to figure in on this, huh?
Absolutely. And honestly, we're doing better in the gumbo area than we ever have right now. We've had 2 recent restaurant openings in the last year or so that have really changed our gumbo scene, for lack of a better term. But Orlando's Cafe, which is a very historic local restaurant, it's run by a young man named Damian Lewis Chapman, who's a descendant of the family that ran the Freeman and Harris Cafe, which was an African-American-owned restaurant that opened in 1911 and was one of the oldest black-owned restaurants in America when it closed. Well, Damien has reopened the restaurant as a place called Orlando's Cafe, and their gumbo is to die for. It's a dark, thick roux that kind of threatens to swallow your spoon, but it's delicious and really different from anything else that we had in the market.
Poor boys figure along the parade route?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a po' boy will stay good all day, so it's an awesome parade day meal. We have a place in Bossier City called Kim's that is run by a young family of Vietnamese entrepreneurs who moved to Shreveport following Hurricane Katrina. And their restaurant's terrific. It was featured pretty recently on NPR on an anniversary of Katrina. But they started a second location in Shreveport, just across the river from Bossier City, And if you only get to eat one po' boy in Shreveport, I hope you'll go to Kim's Seafood and Po' Boy because it's phenomenal. They've even got the Patton's hot sausage from New Orleans that I don't think anyone else north of I-10 serves.
Well, another thing, when people think of Shreveport, they're often thinking about drive-through daiquiris, huh?
I love it. I love that you think about drive-through daiquiris. Yes. I mean, we have one of these stands on practically every corner now. You know, there's just, you can't throw a rock without hitting someone that'll sell you a frozen Incredible Hulk or something.
but what's a Cajun curse?
Oh, my gosh. Well, the Cajun curse, honestly, I hope you've got a designated driver and you ate a big breakfast if you're going to have a Cajun curse. It's from the Cajun Daiquiris location on Uri Drive, which is the nearest daiquiri location to our main parade route. Mm-hmm. And it is, I think it is the strongest daiquiri in town. It is kind of a lemonade-y flavor. I don't know what all goes into it, but boy, howdy. And once you're about halfway through, you are feeling no pain. And sincerely, there are artful daiquiris in town. There are places that are doing really unexpected, cool things, naming drinks after neighborhoods and local people, local intersections. You know what I mean? But there's nothing wrong with a Cajun curse from Cajun Daiquiris on Uri Drive. If you're just trying to get where you got to get as quickly as possible.
That's the spot, huh? Well, you know, it's Mardi Gras time, Chris. So, frankly, we don't have time for any artfully crafted cocktails.
Right. I think we all need to let our hair down. You know, it's been a wild ride these last couple of years, and we're going to just celebrate this Mardi Gras season. I know I'm going to have some daiquiris. I'm probably going to have way more king cake than I should.
Well, happy Mardi Gras, Chris J. It is so wonderful hearing your voice, and I hope we get to come see you soon.
Likewise, Poppy. Thank you for making time to talk to me, and I can't wait to see you again.
That was Chris J., food blogger and longtime friend of Louisiana Eats. Jell-O shots are possibly the perfect Mardi Gras libation. While a brandy milk punch is an essential cocktail on the neutral ground Mardi Gras morning, after a while, you run the risk of spilling. Jell-O shots won't spill, and they can be made in the traditional Mardi Gras colors of purple, green, and gold. Take my advice. A tray of Jell-O shots will make you the most popular person on the parade route. Here are my secrets for making perfect Jell-O shots. First, you need to acquire the right containers, those little pleated paper souffle cups. Nothing else is soft enough to squeeze out the shot properly when it's time for toasting. Anyone can buy a box of them at local restaurant supply stores. Next, buy a fifth of Everclear and a fifth of inexpensive vodka. Save the good stuff for the martinis. Refer to the speed set method on the side of the Jell-O box and completely dissolve the Jell-O in 3/4 cup of boiling water. In a heat-proof measuring cup, combine a 1/2 cup of vodka and a 1/2 cup of Everclear. Add enough ice cubes to increase the volume to a total of 1 1/4 cups. Then stir in the dissolved gelatin. Keep stirring until the ice cubes melt, then pour into the souffle cups and refrigerate until solid. Now you're ready to roll. I love to stroll down the avenue with a basket of Jell-O shots on my arm. You won't believe how many new friends you'll make. I'm Poppy Tooker, and purple, green, and gold Jell-O shots are real Louisiana Eats. What is the latest trend in Mardi Gras throws? Stay tuned, and we'll answer that question when we come right back. I'm Poppy Tooker, and you're listening to Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Louisiana Eats is brought to you with support from Louisiana Fish Fry, breadings, boils, new air fry mixes, and more classic Louisiana dishes available everywhere. Let's all Louisiana. And from the St. Tammany Parish Tourist Commission. Located 40 minutes from New Orleans French Quarter, the North Shore's Tammany Taste features the chefs and farmers, brewers and bakers of St. Tammany Parish's culinary scene. Don't miss the 3rd annual Louisiana Food Truck Festival, Saturday, March 8th at the Harbor Center in Slidell. Over a dozen food trucks from across the region will compete for the People's Choice Award, so come vote for your favorite. Visit LouisianaNorthShore.com to discover more. Louisiana's North Shore, where New Orleans has come to play and get away for more than a century. Here's this week's culinary quiz question, brought to you with support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. What is the latest trend in Mardi Gras throws? It's not longer plastic beads or more stuffed animals. It's food. In an effort to reduce waste and make New Orleans Mardi Gras a bit greener, this year you'll be making groceries on the parade route. In lieu of more beads that clog New Orleans sewers and require ridiculous amounts of cleanup labor, Carnival crews are opting for things that people will actually use, like packets of Camellia brand red beans, jambalaya mix, and dark roast coffee. This new trend actually harkens back to the earliest days of parades, when riders tossed sweet treats to the lovely ladies who discreetly watched the spectacle from their French Quarter balconies. This latest effort is being led by a new nonprofit who call themselves the Grounds Crew, founded by Brett Davis. You'll also see them distributing and collecting bags for beads before and after Uptown parades this year. Those beads will be recycled for use next year. To learn more about their efforts, visit groundscrew.org. I'm Poppy Tooker, and this year's Mardi Gras throws will make for some good Louisiana Eats. Every carnival season, it seems like the population of New Orleans triples in size. Tourists from all over the world descend on the city to partake in our festivities. As part of KCRW's 24-hour radio race, Louisiana Eats producer Joe Schreiner and former contributor Sarah Holtz hit the streets of the French Quarter. They spoke with members of the service industry about their interactions with these out-of-town visitors.
Well, people are in rare form. You got to have that thing out today. People are alive at 5.
Let's say you're visiting a new city for business or pleasure, and you have some time to kill. What's it like to have a real, authentic experience?
Joe and I live in New Orleans, a city known for its year-round partying. New Orleanians are generally a welcoming group of people, and the economy depends on tourism, so the city tries to give tourists what they want.
Its welcoming committee is also varied. It's made up of bartenders, artists, street performers, pedicab drivers. Struck by our curiosity about this idea of authenticity, we spoke with several of these unofficial ambassadors, or whatever you want to call them.
I would say that I'm writing a love letter to this city. I don't know if I'm an ambassador. When I run for mayor, then we can talk about it.
And they explained how they communicate with tourists, especially when nobody knows exactly what these visitors are looking for.
It's interesting. A lot of people don't really know what they want, but I get a lot of the whole authentic New Orleans experience question.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, well, what does that mean to you? I'm like, what? Like Marie Laval's tomb's over there, and the brass bands are over there, and the streetcar will be here in about 5 minutes. Like, there you go. And you can yell like some Tennessee Williams quote at it if you want.
Every night, I get people that come and ask me, my favorite is, where can I get some real New Orleans jazz? And I don't even think they really like the jazz that they're asking for, but they feel like they're obligated to ask for it.
I mean, they're asking you because they're like, the only thing I know is Bourbon Street. Is there something else to do? It kind of depends on the person asking the question, because not all of our experiences are the ones that they want to enjoy while they're here.
Yeah, do you send them to the fried chicken place or the punk and metal show, you know? It's like kind of...
Yeah. If they're the people that want Girls Gone Wild, then Bourbon Street is that way. And when I first moved down here, a friend of mine took me to Bourbon Street. I made it about 2 blocks, and I was like, you've got to get me, this is awful, you got to get me out of here. And he goes, oh, you hate it? He goes, you're going to love New Orleans, this is where we keep them.
There's all sorts of you can do, but that right there, that's a trick question too. Like, what is a New Orleans experience? You can't quantify that. I mean, it's different for every single person in the city.
To be sure, these ambassadors are ambivalent about what they want to share with tourists, depending on how that first interaction goes.
Kind of depends on the people. If they really just want to enjoy it and they have a level of respect for the history and the people and a sensitivity to the fact that they do not live here, then I'll tell them the little secrets that I like to hang out in. But if I don't want to look at them again, then I'm going to send them far away from me.
I don't give my secret spots unless it's somebody I really like. Like, I have a date spot. So City Park, it's like 2 miles straight shot. And it's my favorite. So when customers are rad, that's exactly where I send them.
So people have to earn the secret spots?
For sure. I mean, I'm not trying to give my secrets away so that I'm surrounded by turds all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like group of tourists come in, they ask you like, oh, where's good to eat? Where's good to drink? And like, well, like, I know my friend's working at this bar tonight. Would they be okay with me sending this group of tourists there? You know, it's like, you don't want to give away too many secrets to people that aren't going to appreciate them, you know?
Honestly, I sent a lot of people to the gumbo shop. Like, I literally just sent 2 girls there right now, and I was like, seriously, like, I ate there like 2 weeks ago. I mean, they make my rent, so I have to be a little bit like, what can I do to help you out, for sure.
But if tourists are truly open, if they're truly up for anything, a connection can be made, and no one stays a stranger for too long.
I really enjoy with the customers, and this is the truth, to give them my secret spots. And I'll give them my cell phone number. Like, text me, let me know how it is, because I love to hear about myself. I love to hear how right I am. It makes me feel so good. And they do, and it's fun. And then I keep in touch with these people. When they come back and see me. It's awesome.
I mean, like, I have run into customers, like, hours later at places I've told them to go, and they've bought me a drink.
And it's fun to be a part of somebody's trip. You know, it is. And I like giving them that little bit of something.
This piece was produced by our very own Joe Schreiner and former contributor Sarah Holtz as part of the 24-hour radio race from KCRW's Independent Producer Project.
I was a stranger in the city, out of town were the people I knew. I had that feeling of self-pity, what to do, what to do, what to do. The outlook was decidedly blue. But as I walked through the foggy streets alone, it turned out to be the luckiest day I've known.
That's it for this week's edition of Louisiana Eats, edible content for Louisiana food lovers. Catch up on previous editions and hear all about upcoming special events by visiting poppytooker.com. Have you been waiting for a Poppy's Pop-Up Drag Brunch? Join us for the first of the season at City Park's Botanical Garden on Sunday, March 8th. This fabulous springtime outdoor event will take place at the new kitchen in the garden. The girls will be beautiful, and of course, the mimosas will be bottomless. You'll find the link on our calendar at poppytooker.com, where you'll also find videos, recipes, and even order personalized cookbooks. Louisiana Eats is made possible with major support from Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen, Louisiana Fish Fry, Camellia Brand Beans, and the St. Tammany Tourist Commission. Additional support for Louisiana Eats is provided by Dickie Brennan Steakhouse, a local New Orleans steakhouse serving prime beef and Louisiana Wagyu in New Orleans, French Quarter. Original theme music composed by David Pomerleau and performed by Johnny Sketch and the Dirty Notes. Big thanks to senior producer Joe Schreiner and special projects manager Reggie Morris. And to our business manager and social media maven, Maddie Mullidew. Come visit us anytime in our Louisiana Eats studios at the Southern Food and Beverage Museum. We're on Instagram and Facebook too. Louisiana Eats is a production of Poppy Tooker Broadcasting.